If anyone out there doesn't already know what ACT is or who they are, just search Adventure Country Tracks on your browser of choice after watching this. Meantime, let me explain what Nozza and I are up to in this series of videos. Over the dark days of the 2022-23 winter, I planned a grand trip, a complete loop of the Iberian Peninsula, taking in Portugal, Spain, Catalonia, Andorra, the Basque Country and even a little bit of France, based loosely on the ACT Portugal and the ACT Pyrenees routes and parts of the Trans-European Trail, commonly referred to as the TET. Also searchable via your favourite browser, of course. To this, I added a variety of weather-dependent alternatives, some on and some off tarmac, to link our point of arrival and departure in northern Spain's Cantabria region, our passage from the Algarve in southern Portugal to the Mediterranean at the eastern end of the Pyrenees in Catalonia, and finally our last leg from the Atlantic at the western end of the Pyrenees in the Basque Country, back to Cantabria and the ferry home. The expectation was that we'd need the thick end of a month and would cover roughly 3,750 miles or 6,000 kilometres. Rather than being tied to anything other than the outbound and return ferry crossings, we didn't book any accommodation and took some camping gear in case we either ran out of pennies or all the hostelries were full at any given point. Our bikes were KTMs, mine a mildly modified 2020 790 Adventure R and Nozza's a 2014 1190 Adventure R. Okay, welcome to episode 2 in this series, in which we'll focus on the second day of our north to south Portugal route. We enjoyed a slippy start on a tricky sand and rock based lane. The sand, where wet, had turned to a gripless, silty sludge. Meat and drink to my expert riding buddy Nozza with his booming 1190, but exactly the surface that had seen me down and hit my still aching head on a tree the day before, making me ultra wary of a repeat performance. This shaky start was embellished by one particularly idiot decision on my part, requiring yet more of Nozza's mercifully inexhaustible muscle power. I have a great excuse for this misstep, which I'll get to later, but whilst somewhat adrift enjoying one of those on-bike out-of-body experiences, I sailed down an ever-deepening sand ramp to find myself confronted with a way too deep to ford brook. Looking up to my right, I could see that a laughing, bridge-mounted Nozza had already reached for his first responder kit, and my death by 1,000 social media cuts was, yet again, guaranteed. What an arse. Once more I'd got myself into one of those situations which shouts,
"Please don't attempt this kind of trip on your own, people."
You might be the world's most skilled rider, but sooner or later you may well encounter a situation from which you alone cannot extricate yourself. As the world's least skilled rider, these situations happen to me on an almost daily basis, but be assured nobody is immune, and an overdeveloped ego will no more extract your leg once trapped beneath a heavy adventure bike than it'll scramble you an egg. Anyway, with rescue successfully executed, blush subsiding and excuses duly delivered, we pushed on. This was the beautiful natural park of the Douro, the great Douro River cutting a north-south path through the whole area. Our morning of riding was rounded off by some traffic-free dry tarmac, leaving the hills of the Douro Valley and crossing a plain as we headed further south, aiming for the stunning Serra de Estrela National Park. This section included a brief look at the fortified 13th century village of Castello Rodrigo. Another apple and water break, and a couple more lovely unsurfaced lanes. We were well into the Serra de Estrela Natural Park, and with the day's heat building, we decided to add waterproof layers before the now familiar thunderstorms and rain hit us. This signalled an improvement on our original strategy of simply hoping it wouldn't rain and then getting soaked. Our plan was to ride on until the town of Mantigas, right in the centre of the park, and seek lodging and food there before continuing in the morning.
The ice of lines.
So, while we're climbing this splendid hill, allow me to offer my previously promised excuse for my earlier cock-up. On these long trails, you can really get into a sweet riding rhythm, Constantly shifting weight to find balance and grip on the ever-changing surfaces becomes second nature. Subconscious automatic inputs engender a rise and fall of the motor's hum as it responds to gear, throttle and clutch positions. The experience can become mesmeric, despite hard-working suspension mimicking a swan's furious paddling unseen beneath outwardly serene topside progress along the surface. You drink in the warm, narcotic air denied to those trapped within other, shall we agree, lower forms of transport? Air which carries a cornucopia of pleasures for the snozzle, the aniseed fragrance of fennel, the sweet perfume of pine trees, the aromatic delights of eucalyptus, their powerful mix competing with the tart bouquet of overworked sweat glands wafting up from overheated armpits. Occasionally, unexpected and unsolicited laughter or song emerges from the rider's lips. At other times, we are lulled deep into personal, almost dreamlike worlds, those I was miles away out-of-body moments leading to frequent misjunctions and wrong turns requiring go-arounds or course adjustments. As men of the world, we tend to claim momentary blank GPS screens or other unprovable technical interferences rather than admit that we had slipped into The Hills Are Alive sung in a lusty, wildly off-key Julie Andrews homage falsetto. Okay, so that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. On this most excellent, long, steep, rocky and slippery climb, we began to see the first signs of the wildfires that had torn through thousands of acres of the Estrela in last summer's unprecedented heat waves. We would see so much more of this devastation the next morning, but for now it was on to Mantigas, some rest and, as it turned out, some really good food. Well, if you've stuck it out this far, well done and thank you. Check out episode 3 to see if I managed to stay aboard for a third day on the dirt trails of Portugal. Cheers, you faithful few, and I really mean it when I say thanks for watching. Your time is appreciated. Bye for now.